Are you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbprou.com.
Good evening and welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier, and really excited to hang out with you once again on Tuesday evening. As you know, as a business owner, there's so many things you need to know that you can't possibly know them all. And your business can't go any further than you're prepared to take it. That's why I created Leadership Live at 8:05. It's a way to help you learn from experienced guests who have a lot of experience in small business entrepreneurship and can share valuable insights to help build your knowledge so that you can be a better leader for your organization. I think at the end of the day, it's important in business to really focus on facts and focus on the truth. And there's truth in numbers. And look forward tonight to talking to our guests because the truth does matter. And it's very important in business for you to be able to make the right decisions to move your business forward. So tonight, my guest is Dave Lovejoy. We've had a great chat about it, and we're going to continue the conversation here with you tonight. Hey, David, how you doing?
Good, Andrew. Nice to see you again.
Definitely good to see you as well. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm really looking forward to a great conversation and also looking forward to comments and questions from the group. Hey, Darren, how you doing? Welcome everybody. And definitely before we get into this, David, you and I know each other somewhat, but the audience doesn't know you at all. So if you could take a couple minutes to really talk people through sort of your journey and how you got to where you are now, because that'll give them context for what we're going to be discussing today.
Sure. Thank you. I suppose I'll start with my role as a tour guide in Japan. Occasionally, I'd be sent over to Burma or Vietnam, but predominantly I was based in Japan. I led 2-week tours of multinational groups, usually around 14 people, all around the country. And what really opened my mind was the conversations we had. Each of these clients typically had their own business, came from different regions, and we had some long-form discussions that were really eye-opening. And ironically, right before the Tokyo Olympics, the industry disappeared off the face of the planet with COVID. So I pivoted to business school, and I took that tourism mindset and those cross-pollination conversations into podcasting and started networking that way with people in different industries. And now I founded, now I've run a media and venture studio called Horizon Search. And we're currently incubating Coach Finder, which is a matchmaking platform to connect people with world-class coaches and advisors in business.
Okay, excellent. Well, coaching is very important in business, and definitely having an international experience helps you see the world a lot differently. Having been in the Navy, I've had a chance to travel as well, and it just gives you a perspective that you can't really get from within the U.S. So, it's great that we have a chance to chat tonight, and look forward to talking to you more. But before we do that, we do the show through the Small Business Pro University. So I just want to take a minute to share what the Small Business Pro University is, and then I'll be back talking with David Lovejoy about the truth matters and how and why it does. Many small businesses experience low or no revenue growth, and the owners are not making enough money. I founded Small Business Pro University to help you break that cycle by empowering you with greater knowledge and enhanced skills to lead your organization more effectively. Over the past 15 years, I have collaborated with organizations like the Small Business Development Center, Rising Tide Capital, Empower the Village, NJMEP, Rutgers University, and SCORE to work one-on-one with over 1,000 business owners and teach tens of thousands of people about business. My experience includes serving as a naval officer, managing businesses, graduating from MIT, earning an MBA from NYU, and achieving the CFA designation, which has prepared me to accomplish my mission of helping 1,008,000 business owners to sell more, maximize profit, and finance growth by 2028. My vision is to create the ultimate business ecosystem for entrepreneurs. Small Business Pro University empowers entrepreneurs like you to run their businesses more professionally and create sustainable enterprises. We employ my proven proprietary Masterpreneur Playbook framework to guide your journey along the Masterpreneur path and facilitate your Masterpreneur evolution to work on your business and scale faster and easier. Small Business Pro University provides access to valuable resources, partnerships, and relationships that will help you to sell more, maximize profit, and finance growth. Our Masterpreneur initiatives include the Small Business Pro Network, 100+ expert-led multimedia courses, intensive training workshops, Spanish language training, Leadership Live at 8:05 live stream and podcast, in-person Power Breakfast events, and advisory coaching, consulting, and training services. Okay, welcome back. I'm here with David Lovejoy talking small business. The topic tonight is the truth matters. So David, we came up with that topic, but talk a little bit about why we came up to with that topic and what that means.
Well, full disclosure, it's been a little while since we had that conversation, but if I recall correctly, I think we were talking about storytelling and how important that was, even in something as like black and white as numbers. There's this book by Harvard Business Publishing, I believe, about finance, and it was talking about the storytelling in numbers and how, like, I used to think you couldn't lie in numbers, or there's only one way to interpret them, and it turns out, maybe obviously to some of the listeners, that that's not true. And that was just an eye-opening experience, and how, you just look a little deeper behind titles, behind numbers that are given you, and understand, or at least explore the possibility that everything is a story. And I think that'll open up area to negotiate, as well as open up areas to investigate. But I'd say, something that came to mind recently, I think it's actually earlier today, is the compounding effect of our decisions. So there's like short-term tactics or strategies and long-term tactics and strategies. And speaking today to a gentleman about negotiation, and I forget exactly how this started, but basically it was like, my point was, it's important to be honest, because there's always a cost with everything. And so if you lie to get ahead in the short term, you're actually like kind of separating from the truth in that moment. And it's a blade that cuts both ways. So then as you move forward, you're going to be like further off from true north, and it's going to like affect your ability to actually understand the true data coming in. So it's important to consider how you want to show up and how you want to operate, because whatever you choose, there's going to be a cost and a benefit. I don't think there's like a free lunch. So it's a couple of things that came to mind. Apologies if I missed kind of how you wanted to set that up, but that was what came to mind, Andrew.
Okay. No, that's perfect. I think that many times as business owners, we're so busy doing things that and making decisions, but we don't step back to really assess where we are and assess the situation. And I think that, talking about short-term versus long-term, I've definitely found that the small business community seems like it's really large, but it's really small. And, you run into people many times. So, your reputation is so important. So, definitely, I guess you've been working, investing, as well as through your experience. How would you say that, when people are putting their story together, what is key? I mean, I think that sometimes marketing can be a little bit in the gray area in terms of the truth. And, what are some rules of thumb, or how should we approach that? And what should we worry about?
That is a really big and a really important question. I think these days there's more of a focus on authenticity because we're inundated and oversaturated with information, things competing for our attention. Even with AI, I think ChatGPT came out November 2022. And then within that, maybe another 6 months, it started to become more widely adopted. And you start to notice certain words or certain turns of phrase that are becoming ubiquitous, and they would have scored points a couple years prior, but now they're just discarded right into the wastebasket because it's like, oh, you're outsourcing your thinking, or if so to write this, if it's not worth your time, why should it be worth my time? So sometimes like less is more, kind of. So rather than a really long, really grammatically perfect email or DM, something really short and just to the point catches attention. I think honesty, it hits you in your bones. It's like this frequency. You can just tell when someone's being real. And I think there's still an argument to be made about restraint. I think balance is important to strive for when it comes to authenticity, because sometimes you could be authentic, like, look how open I'm being, but sometimes that could put the person you're talking to in a different mindset. So there's a balance to be struck there. But I think with marketing, authenticity matters, because let's say you want a job or you want a client or something like that. So you put your best foot forward, and you kind of airbrush your profile, like metaphorically speaking, to be perfect, to compete with the very best. But sometimes you can like, negotiate yourself into a room that you don't really belong in, and maybe that's not really the best use of your energy. So even though there's a short-term kind of like ego hit with not getting that particular prize, sometimes there's a longer-term benefit to being on your path. Like Steve Jobs said, I think in the 2005 Stanford commencement speech, the dots only line up looking back. But if you're being authentic, you're on your path and you're on your growth journey rather than mine or Andrew's or anyone else's. So that's kind of something I try to remind myself of as we're moving in this fast-paced world, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon, is you're really on your path. And I think just start with authenticity, and it'll lead you to the people that you should be speaking with. It's funny. I mean, sorry to go on. I'll just finish with this before I hand it back to you, Andrew. I recently in the last year or so, I've wound up in rooms where I'm just like, how did I get here? Like I feel so like underqualified. But because I'm authentic, like I'm not like, pulling wool over anyone's eyes or anything. People know what they're getting, and we're able to collaborate. And there's still maybe surprises, good and bad, but overall, it's a growth oriented collaboration or conversation, and it's really fun. And it's just to say, like, maybe just keep your mind open that even though you see one area might close, let's say that's their fear, like, oh, if I'm authentic, this will close. Something else is going to open. There always seems to be this kind of balance. And so I don't know. I'm just would like to leave you with that in mind. Just, have authenticity be your North Star.
Okay. All right. No, definitely, definitely. But sometimes you're walking a tight line. I like this question here. As a leader, how do you maintain truth and transparency while also protecting sensitive business strategies? I haven't been a corporate executive. I've been in that situation as well. And, what I'd like to, be great to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I mean, that, sounds like a cop-out answer. It does depend. You have a responsibility to shareholders. You have a responsibility to your team. Sometimes that does mean exercising restraint. I'm involved in the coaching and peer group world, and part of the reason, or part of the benefit rather, of being involved in a peer group is because it's lonely at the top. You can't talk about everything as a CEO with your team. So you do need someone else, a confidant to talk with, a business coach, or members of your peer group, etc. But I'd say if it comes down to protecting your ego versus protecting proprietary or sensitive information, that's a little bit different. So you can say, look, I'm not really sure what to do, but I feel we should do this. This strategy makes sense. I'd like to know what your thoughts are. That can show confidence in your team. That can provide some more context or some more data to your decision making. And that could also have a long-term benefit, like they see you as a human, and people respect humans. Symbols seem nice in the short term, but as you see with like tabloids and stuff, the fall from grace is usually like double whatever the positive image was. So I find it's better to be truthful with your team in terms of your, let's say, human kind of nature. Like, I'm not really sure what to do. I'm going to seek this out. I'm learning, I'm growing, trying my best, and lead by example. But then when it comes to secret information, you obviously have a duty of care there. So you have to kind of navigate that difference.
Yeah, definitely can be a little bit challenging at times. And, sometimes, you have responsibility to different parties. So, managing through that situation in as truthful way as possible is important. And I really like what you said about, letting people know that you don't know something. It could be difficult to say, I don't know this, especially if you're the boss or, manager, you want to look, be the expert. So was that hard for you? Or was that just something inherent that you already knew and did?
Well, to be honest with you, as in light of the theme of today's show, it was hard for me. I had imposter syndrome, and I felt that I had to present a certain way. But I learned over time that I was really only fooling myself. And what I mean by that is referencing what I mentioned about the data. You don't know what you don't know. And when you're open, you're like Andrew and I together are always going to know more than me alone. So it's in my best interest not to try to outshine Andrew, or not to try to present that I'm perfect and he's got to respect me based on that. Rather, maybe I win him over by my grit, or just showing up, or being consistent or reliable, or maybe, and those are the things where we're different. And when you lean into finding out who you are, and like Andrew said, you do need to, you might have a responsibility to protecting proprietary, confidential information. But when it comes to leadership, connecting with your people and forming like a network, I think that it's scary at first, admitting you're like, I don't know, or, I'm tired, or, I'm, some weakness or something. But if you, intention is important. It's the how is more important than the what in this case. If I'm doing it because I want Andrew to feel sorry for me, that's a lot different than being like, look, it humbles me to say this, but I'm just out of steam today. Um, and then you can like negotiate and figure it out. And maybe that's a disappointment to Andrew in this day, but over time he'll probably learn to appreciate that I'll let him know where my limits are and stuff, so he knows how to make his decisions. If I'm trying to like hide stuff from him or something, it makes it harder to collaborate and lead. So I don't know if that fully answers the question, but yeah, it's hard at first, but over time it gets easier the more you do it because you see the benefit.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was sort of thrown in by fire after college because I was a naval officer. So I went to the ship and I had 20 people working for me that all had been in the Navy longer than me and and most of them were older than me too. So, definitely they knew a lot more than I did. And I couldn't fake it. So,
Right.
But it was a good growing experience. And, if you can take the time and feel comfortable learning from everybody in your organization, because usually everyone at every level may have something to contribute that could be beneficial. So that's key. So now you talked about truth in numbers. And you talked a little bit about kind of how you figured that out. And, because a lot of business owners are afraid of numbers, was that something you did from the beginning, or how did you transition to that? And what are some of the key things to focus on in terms of your numbers as a business owner?
Well, I think that's a broad question depending on where you're at in terms of your business. If you're pre-revenue, post-revenue, going through mergers and acquisitions. So I think perhaps where we had that discussion, Andrew, was on the topic of maybe search funds or micro private equity, or buying small and medium-sized businesses, or just people on two sides of an exchange. So you have the business owner, that's their baby. They grew that company and they have a certain value, a certain number. Maybe the number is a target. Like if I clear this, it means this for my life moving forward. Or maybe, they overlook some dust in the corner, and they're like, this is the value of my company. And the business buyer, they're the ones that are going to have to sit with that decision longer term. And each side has a point, assuming good faith in the negotiations. Each side is going to arrive at different numbers. Very rarely would it be like exactly the same. I think your business is worth 5 million, and that's exactly what I wanted to sell it for. I think typically there's different realities. It's not always, and I think most of the time actually, it's not people trying to trick you. It really is different realities. So it depends on where you weight certain data, and that determines your valuation. There's industry averages in terms of like, multiples in a certain industry or a certain type of business. If it has recurring revenue, good margins, depending on how old it is, like how quickly it grew there, or how sustainable it was through, let's say, recession or something like that, then that's going to affect maybe the multiple. But like if you look at debts, or maybe the distribution, or the how many, like if one revenue stream is coming from like one client in particular, that could be a risk, of course. But maybe, push back on that was like, oh, but this client's been with us for 10 years, they're not going to go anywhere. And someone else could interpret that as even greater risk, because it's like, well, if you're the business owner and you made that relationship and you're selling the company, where's the guarantee they're going to stay with us? So anyway, it's just a different way of interpreting the data and what that means, and the different layers for that. Like it really is fascinating how I feel anyway, how little, I'll just own it for myself, how little I know. I was going to make it general and say how little we know, but stick on myself for now. And that's a double-edged sword as well, because it does make for a really interesting adventure. You're never bored, but it is really confusing when I keep thinking that the more I learn, like I'm going to get more stable. And it's like, I just feel like that Dunning-Kruger effect where it just highlights like how little I actually know.
Definitely. I run into the same thing. Business, you have a major that's business,
Yep.
but it's so broad that you don't even realize it until you step into it doing your own business, or in different roles at certain companies where you have to use multiple disciplines within business. So definitely, I like how you said there's like multiple realities. Work with a lot of business owners. The business owners generally think their business is worth a lot more than the buyer does. And then there's different types of buyers that
Right.
may value the same business different ways based on their goals or what they would do with it. So, and you've sort of worked on both sides. So, what guidance would you give to someone who thinks they may want to sell their business within 3 to 5 years? Generally, is the time frame to prepare.
That's a great question. And I think it's a question that many people forget to ask until it's time. They're looking for a buyer right now. There's a strategy. There's a different type of business. Trying to think of a good analogy here. It's almost like clothing. Like you might wear one outfit to a particular event, but you'd wear a different outfit. It's the same frame underneath, but it depends on what the event is. So there's a different way to kind of set up your business to be sold, to be bought. And if you want to get strategic about it, which you probably do, you're looking at people, like you might look at a strategic buyer. Now there are brokers out there that you could talk with. They have their own business model, and but it's probably good to speak to a few and just see kind of what you're dealing with. Depending on the size of the business, you could talk to people in the search fund space, like searchfunder.com. And there are people there looking to buy businesses. Sometimes private equity comes in there, but typically it's underneath what private equity would be looking to buy. So you're looking at maybe $10 million companies and under, sometimes a bit more, but just to give you an average. If it's larger than that, talk to brokers, people in peer groups. If you are a member of a peer group or know someone who is, those sometimes open up to a broader network, and you can get pointers there of people in maybe a legal or accounting, or just getting different data on your business and kicking the tires, so to speak. And because you touched on this earlier, Andrew, but there's so many things to be involved in when you're running a business. I mean, the list is endless, honestly. So you can't really be running it all the time with the perspective of someone who's coming in from the cold, so to speak, to buy it. They're always going to see it differently. And so getting some more people looking at it might help. And then, of course, you want to be sensitive. You don't want to scare the team or anything like that. Like, hey, we're thinking of selling the company. So keep that in mind as well.
Okay. Excellent. So time's going pretty quick. So we're halfway through. And, talking about truth in numbers, we're able to do some things now this year that we weren't able to do before. So I'm just going to share a little bit about, what we're able to do on financial management. And then we'll come back talking with David about why and how the truth matters. Every great business owner needs an expert financial management team. As your business grows, you're going to need more comprehensive financial expertise to help you with these activities. Financing growth, managing cash flow, maximizing profitability, strategic planning and budgeting, accurate, timely information for decision-making, determining the appropriate staffing and inventory levels, and preparation for and analysis of potential opportunities. At this stage, you may not have the budget to hire multiple financial professionals from different firms. However, we can provide an outsourced team with over 100 years of experience in CFO, controller, accounting, tax, and bookkeeping to provide the expertise you need when needed. We will help you with your financial needs from A to Z. Whether you need bookkeeping, we will organize and enter your financial information. Accounting, we will provide accurate, timely financial reporting with analysis of key information and trends. Taxes, we will help you with tax preparation, reporting, and submission. Or CFO services, business strategy, financial projections, KPIs, or financing. We've got you covered from A to Z. Use the link below to schedule a complimentary discovery session. You have nothing to lose. Use the link below to explore how we can help. Okay, great. I'm back with David. We're talking small business. The truth matters. So, David, one of the things you say that you do is help people go from promising to proving through coaching and other resources that you have. Talk about what that means in terms of, how you help people do that.
Sure. Well, I'll take a step back perhaps and talk about coaching as a definition, because that was something that kind of opened my eyes a bit. I have been a mentor, I've been a consultant, and I have been an advisor. And now I'm a coach. And each of those are distinct roles. You can switch between them. There is a lot of overlap depending on the context, but it's important to be clear about which role you're taking on. So the person you're helping understands the way in which to receive it, and also what your kind of goals and aims are. So getting back to coaching is helping someone reach their potential, is kind of how I look at it. And rather than giving advice, or rather than thinking that I know, let's use Andrew as an example here. Rather than thinking I know what Andrew needs, he told me about his day, and I'm like, oh, I know exactly what you should do. I don't. Andrew has a couple, maybe 100,000 or a million, I forget how big our vocabulary is, but words to choose from. But even that isn't enough to perfectly encapsulate exactly what he wants to. That's just the best that he could do at the time. Even now, as I'm trying to communicate to you, I'll probably look back on this, be like, oh, I wish I said it this way, right? And then the way it lands in your ears is very different as well. So by the time your words come back to me from what I just shared with you, it's gone through a few mutations. And so we're never 100% aligned with reality. So it's kind of, maybe, I don't know if dangerous is the right word, but it's maybe not the most helpful for me to give you advice. Unless that's exactly what you need. You're like, look, I'll take whatever I can get. Fine. I'll try to give you advice with what I know. But coaching is more asking you strategic questions, holding up a mirror, getting you to answer your own questions, because you know better than I ever will what you need. But we're kind of complements to each other with our quantum brains between our ears. So I've got mine, you've got yours, but connected. That old expression, like two minds are better than one. It's true, in more ways than one. And coaching is essentially helping you, helping you help you, teaching you how to fish rather than giving you a fish, which is kind of the advice analogy I made earlier. So that's how, Andrew, I help people personally with my coaching, and then with the coach matching platform I mentioned earlier. And here's another thing, if I may. I've noticed too, of course, we use labels and categories to kind of make sense of our, world, environment, whatever, but there's always a cost. So some of the risk of doing that is, what if we got it wrong? Or what if there was a temporal variable that we forgot? So it's like, Andrew was hungry yesterday, but he's not hungry today when I talk to him. So for me to say that Andrew's always hungry maybe isn't accurate. Maybe that analogy doesn't land that well. But with coaching, I've found that some people have said, oh, I don't like coaching. And I suspect, and I've found basis myself, that it could come down to the mismatch. So if you're matched to the right coach, I think that your results will be better. And sometimes that's easier said than done. So what we're trying to do with our platform is connect the right coach to the right person. So that could be I'm an executive coach, but maybe someone else needs an M&A advisor. Maybe someone else needs a speech coach or a sales coach or, private equity coach or something like that. So there's so many different ways that you can distill the solution or the guidance to that particular pain point or problem. So rather than just say, oh, I'm a coach, I can help you with everything, I think it's important to understand what it is you're looking for. And that can change. Like maybe I'm a good coach for you next month, but maybe someone else will be a better coach for you later in the year. And so optimizing your journey, I think, is the goal. And only you can do that.
Okay. No, I mean, definitely that's important, sort of defining things, because sometimes the mismatch is expectations. They may think they need a coach, but they need a consultant.
Right.
Or, I'd
Or
say,
vice versa.
yeah, I sort of say I'm sort of like a coach consultant, because, I
I like
definitely
that.
talk to people, but a lot of times I'll do stuff like, if we're on, I'll be like, pull up your QuickBooks and let's fix it, which crosses the line, but that's what they need.
Some people want that.
So it just, it varies, but it is important to, everybody to have the same expectations and goals. So, cool. So, one thing I always say that I think is key in business is it's important to know your most important job as a business owner. And that's really sales and marketing. And, surprising how many people don't know that, or don't want to admit or commit to that. But also, even if you do, um, building your knowledge in those spaces, because a lot of time business owners never took a marketing class, never did sales before, and they're thrust into that situation. You help people with product launches, and I'd say my product launches haven't met my expectations. So what are some best, and I'm sure a lot of other business owners as well, what are some like basic best practices around launching a product?
Well, great question. That is, in some sense, the question. I think never assuming that you know enough is something that is kind of emblazoned in my mind. Um, of course, you have to make a decision at the same time. You can't just always be data gathering and never implementing. I think testing is really important. No one wants to look a fool and just make something that gets picked apart. But honestly, you have so many blind spots that there's no way really around it, I think. And even if there is, I just think it's better to rip the band-aid off and get that feedback. So you could do like beta testing or have like a focus group. Sometimes you can pay for this. Sometimes you could do it with your own network. I think it's never been easier these days with social media. You could reach out to a few folks, maybe have some kind of quid pro quo, a $5 or $20 gift card somewhere just for their authentic feedback. I think surveys, the mileage may vary because sometimes people just like ticking boxes or whatever the case is. You may not get like granular, accurate data. Whereas if it's, well, I guess too, gathering a few different types of data is a good idea. So you could have like an hour-long conversation with someone, and maybe there's a benefit where they get a free year membership to the product, or like I mentioned, the gift card, or some way that you can provide value for them in their industry. And then perhaps also doing a broad, like, 1,000 surveys or something like that, and then compare the data. But I'd say gathering data and there's that expression like motion creates data. So also like implementing, iterating, and then when you want to go live for real, you will have gotten a lot of different eyeballs and mindsets on that particular product or service. So it is going to be a lot more informed than what you could do by just passively reading books and trying to perfect the way that you show up. So I'd recommend getting input from people is probably the best way in testing. So don't go for perfection, at least not at the beginning. Go for data to discover where your imperfections are, and then prioritize. You mentioned as a business owner, Andrew, understanding your most important role. That reminded me, I don't think it's exactly how you meant it, but what popped up in my mind was prioritization. my to-do list is never getting finished. I'm aware of that now. I've stopped trying to ever pretend that it's going to be finished. But now I'm just getting better. I think at prioritizing. And so similar with your product, you're going to have more things that you could do. It could be heavier, faster, lighter, cheaper, etc. But you just need to prioritize based on the data I'm getting. This is probably where I'm going to get the most. I mean, look at SpaceX rocket launches. Like they look all the same from afar, but if you look, there's so many little things they're testing. So I'd say that with your product launch, just see, what strategies or what could you put out there that's going to give you 2 units of data for 1 unit of effort. So now, no matter what happens, you're extracting more information than you're expending. I think that would help.
Okay. No, that's great. I mean, definitely, testing, doing your research can really have a great place in your success. I mean, a lot of people get stuck with analysis paralysis. They're looking at stuff and, don't know the right answer. So they don't do anything. And especially run into that in financial projections, because the hard part is you're talking about the future, so you can't know what the future is going to be. So whatever you come up with is going to be wrong, but you have to come up with a reasonable assumptions as to what's going to happen, and then try and test them. So definitely, like what you're saying, it's important to do that. So now also, when you look at sales strategy, that can be difficult for a lot of people as well.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any things that, every business owner should know about developing their sales strategy?
Yes. Short answer. Do it yourself. Like, no one wants to do it, but I think you have to. Not always. Like you'll definitely want to outsource and have a team, but unless I think the business owner needs to know what that whole process is like themselves. Typically, if they're an entrepreneur, they will have gone through that just by default, but not always. My goodness, this could be a whole hour by itself. But I think sales is one of the most important things that we do as human beings. It gets defined as like used car salesmen, et cetera, but it's everywhere. Doctors are performing sales depending on where they get their funding or which kind of hospitals they work with, et cetera. You're doing sales in relationships. Hopefully it's ethical, but in a sense you're presenting. I think I should do this, or I think we should go here, et cetera. And when it comes to, let's say, getting a deal closed. So I've got this product or service and I want someone to buy. There's many variables, but I'll try to just use one example that I think is common. You have the person being prospected. They're typically in the liability conserving money mindset. They don't want to lose anything. They don't want money flying out of their account or wallet. And then you have you coming in and saying, I can do this for you. And I think rather than, maybe it sounds obvious, but rather than forcing anything or reacting, you want to just explore what, again, going back to like the advice thing, I don't know exactly what it is you want. If you disqualify yourself and your service, that builds trust. And you don't know that person's network. They might introduce 3 clients to you. And so you were trying to chase 1 and you wound up getting 3. So I say, don't always assume that you know what you're getting into, and just be open-minded and explore. Like, what would it mean for you if you had 3 clients with like half the time that you're spending? Would that have a meaningful impact on your bottom line? It's like, yes, like I'd pay $10,000 for that. Oh, really? Because we have this product that's $100. It's like, what? Tell me more. Just making a silly example there. But start with like the value rather than the price, because when you are focusing on the price, people think the cost, and they get in that liability and that conserving mindset rather than like a growth oriented mindset, like the value rather than $100 leaving my wallet, I'm gaining 1,000 hours of time. And with those 1,000 hours of time, I can do this and this with my team, which will mean this and this money in our bottom line. So yeah, just be open-minded, be honest, and don't try to force something that's not a good fit just to close the sale. Because sometimes by disqualifying yourself, you wind up winning a true referral partner. So that can be even more valuable than what you thought you were trying to do.
Okay. Yeah. So definitely, it's interesting how a lot of your business can come from somewhere you never expected it to come from. So it is important to, be open to that and treat people, in the right way.
Can I add something to that, Andrew, real quick?
Sure.
What you just said about treat people the right way and business coming from places you didn't expect. That reminded me, 2 phenomenal referral partners came from conversations that they were very clear, I am not buying from you. I'm not interested. And I was like, great, I'm going to this purely for data. And I think because I was distracted from the prize, I showed up more authentic, and they sold themselves. I wasn't trying to sell them, but they sold themselves and they referred other people. And so I think if you just show up in the right way, don't think of, because people, we're advanced, there's the rational mind, but you can feel when someone's like angling and trying to, manipulate you, or, there's something you can't quite put your finger on, but something's off. Whereas if someone just like themselves and they're not trying to force anything, you're curious and it's like, oh, tell me more. And so that's more collaborative. That's more engaging. That's the place that I want to be as a person. And so you want to see more of that. And so if you show up like that, I think it's a win-win for both involved.
Yeah, definitely. Nowadays there's so much information available that, people aren't being sold the way they used to be. Really people are choosing what they're going to buy. And it's really about offering them a solution to their need, want, or desire, not trying to get them to buy something that you want them to buy. That only comes when you communicate with them and learn what their need, want, and desire is. Definitely things change when you're under pressure. We got a question here that I like. Wait, that's the wrong question. Here we go. What's your number one tip for staying authentic under pressure?
Well, without understanding the nuance of that, I would say one way is to be honest about the pressure. So I don't know exactly what this would mean, but let's take, for example, you're in a boardroom. And this is advice that was given to me. So this isn't like, I don't own this or anything, but it's something that I found useful. Just say, I'm a bit nervous talking to all you bigwigs in here. But if you're clear, I'm not wasting your time. I'm aware that your time is super valuable. I'm aware that you have these needs and I can do this for you. And you're fielding questions. Yeah. People are more interested in getting value. They don't really care if your hair is perfect or if you're nervous or not, as long as you're not wasting their time. It could actually be worse trying to like appear perfect and just be like, bland and like waste their time. Maybe that makes you feel better. Like, oh, I didn't stumble over any of my words or anything, but it's like, where does that lead your business? Whereas if you're authentic, you're going to be more memorable. Worst case scenario, right? You don't get the sale. Maybe they laugh at you or they're like, no, the data that you get from that is going to be a superpower. You're going to be 10 times better. You're going to know exactly, as painful as it is, you'll know exactly where to double down, get more research, get that partner, have someone else do that because you weren't the right person to be on the numbers on that particular deal, etc. It's going to expose the chinks in your armor, the cracks or whatever. Again, that's the worst case, but typically it's not the worst case. We just kind of, catastrophize it in our mind. Our imagination is like making it worse. So yeah, just, question went away, but like staying, like the most important thing under pressure. New question.
Okay. So, no, definitely just some comments on what you're talking about and people agreeing. Definitely, I think that, honesty and creating a culture of honesty, everything comes from the top.
Yeah.
So, with your organizations, when you look at organizations, what are best practices as far as creating a culture of honesty within an organization?
This is gonna depend. I mean, there's so many variables, but I'll try to keep it broad and connected to what I've experienced at the same time. So, the question, like, how can you create a culture of honesty in fast-moving startup or fast-growing teams? Um, I think, like Andrew said, it always starts, and I'd say ends as well, at the top. You have to own everything, as uncomfortable as that may be. The way I look at it, I guess this is maybe stoicism. It's all your fault. Um, and I've had some frustrating situations with team members before, and it's like, oh, I wish they would just do this or whatever. But I thank them for the opportunity to learn and grow. And I saw their reaction, their facial expression. It's like, you're thanking me, and it shows. I think, and again, this is just there's probably nuances that I'm blind to, but I just share this transparently because it might be something with exploring in your own work or life. Um, and the performance, it fixed like everything, and things were getting done better and on the time, like all the things that I would have like listed and said, could you please do these things? And or getting frustrated by just showing up as myself, learning, growing. And I mean, again, case by case, sometimes you do need to have certain kind of provisions or consequences, etc. But when there's room for it, I think leading by example, that you're honest, you're imperfect, but you're trying. And I think we're probably more afraid of being like embarrassed or being like losing, let's say, whatever that means. So if you're showing some level of comfort and confidence in your becoming, that's like the coaching term, becoming rather than arrived. Um, that's inspiring. You think of like movies, the hero or antagonist is always more interesting when they're flawed rather than like perfect. And there's a reason for that. It's real. You have strengths, you have weaknesses. I have strengths, I have weaknesses. There's also that time component I mentioned. Sometimes my strengths and weaknesses change throughout the day, etc. So if you show up just honest with your becoming and your intentions, I care about my team, I care about the company. The better the company does, the better we all do. My actions back that up. Then people are like, that actually I feel connected here. I feel part of something. But you have to back it up, and I think it starts with yourself as a leader. Not sure if you're within earshot, Andrew.
Sorry about that. I was talking to myself, I guess.
No problem.
I thought I was in the screen. But definitely, when you're working with people, it's important to own everything within your organization, your accountability. In my book, Running Your Small Business Like a Pro, one of the chapters called "Is It Me or Are My Employees Crazy?" Because it's important to understand that what you do drives what's the culture and what's happening within the organization, and you really don't have anyone to blame except for yourself, because you're the only one that has the power to really create the organization in the way that you want it to be. So okay. So, I mean, we've covered a lot of great stuff. Hour goes really fast. But before we go, want to make sure that we sort of narrow down what we talked about And, if you could share 3 key takeaways for people who joined us tonight, because we did talk about a lot of things, but, most people can't remember more than 3 things anyway. So I would find it a really good way to leave things off so people have something that they can really take away and focus on as they go into their day tomorrow and going forward. So I'll give you a minute to think about that while I share some info about our upcoming conference. And, we'll be back talking small business. We're here at the Small Business Power Breakfast and Conference. I'm excited to say that we had a great day.
This event was a wow. Every panel, every speaker has had so much amazing content and good information to share.
This is a good day to put aside to come out and do some learning, but also make some great connections. The ones that I made were impactful.
Hi, I'm Andrew Frazier, Masterpreneur and founder of the Small Business Pro University. For more than 10 years, our events have directly resulted in tens of millions of dollars in both revenue and financing for attendees. Join me at the Small Business Pro Power Conference on July 25th at NJ Pack's Nico Kitchen and Bar in Newark, New Jersey, to learn best practices, enjoy great networking, and gain useful knowledge. We will supercharge your day. I look forward to seeing you at the Small Business Pro Power Conference on July 25th in NJ Pack at Nico Kitchen and Bar in Newark, New Jersey. To learn more and register, visit www.sbpru.com/conference. All right, great. So I'm here with David Lovejoy. We've been chatting about small business and on the topic of the truth matters. And although we covered a lot of things, David, could you leave us with 3 key things that people should take away from our conversation this evening?
Yes. I'm going to do some chunking here. Our short-term memory can only hold, our kind of conscious mind only holds 3 or 4 things at a time, which is why things are often shared in 3s. But there's 2 of those 3 that I think go together. So one is being authentic. And sometimes that means letting a sale go when you're doing sales, but just being focused on the value. Sometimes the value is not in the sale, and that it can the value from that could exceed your expectations. Also, on the topic of sales, don't assume you know enough. You're going to get data from pitching, and you're going to get data from focus interviews. So try to put yourself out there or your product or service out there and get more feedback. And lastly, get a coach if you don't have one. And if you don't like coaching, try again with a different coach. It might have been the fit, but I think we all need a coach, if not like a mentor, just someone to get some viewpoints from and speak to candidly about our thoughts and what we're going through. Because as someone said earlier in the call today, you can't tell your team everything. So those are my 3 things: coaching, authenticity, and sales.
Excellent. So, key takeaways, being yourself. One thing that I've found is, leadership. Everybody has a potential to be a leader in their own way, but to be a leader, you have to be authentic. So very important, getting your data and feedback, understanding, getting understanding from the marketplace. Those are the people who are going to buy. And we say, you're not your target market. So just because you like it doesn't mean that the people who you're trying to market and sell to are going to. And then coaching, it's a journey. Nobody succeeds alone. Either formal coaching, informal coaching. I have 2 other people that do similar things in different fields So we kind of cross coach each other. But you need somebody who you can talk to about your business that, understands business, and that can ask you the right questions and give you insights that you need to be successful. So, this has been great, David. So definitely appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule to hang out with me tonight. Definitely want to make sure that everybody knows that in the chat, we've got David's information. So you can connect with him on LinkedIn. You can tell he's a pretty friendly guy. So you're welcome to reach out to him. And then also, if you want to learn a little bit more about what he does, definitely you can go to his website, and his website's in the chat as well. So David, anything you want to share before we close out?
No, thank you so much, Andrew. This was a great experience, and I'll definitely be checking out more episodes from you.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again for joining. Hang on for a minute as I close out, and we'll go from there. So, hey, everybody, thanks again for your comments, your questions. Really appreciate you tuning in every week. Definitely each week we have a great guest and great topic, and appreciate everybody's feedback, and glad that you're getting valuable information out of it, because that's really what it's about, trying to make sure that you're getting something valuable, so it's worth hanging out. So as you know, each week we do have a special guest, and just to give you a quick preview of next week we're going to be talking about standing out from your competition and command a superior price. I think definitely that's really important to be able to do. We've got Bruce Elkfeld, and we're going to be talking about how you can do that more successfully. So hopefully you can join us then as well. Also, always remember that at the end of the day, the more that you know, the more successfully your business is going to grow.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.